Do you love TV shows? We do too. Hello everyone, I'm Jeff.
And I'm Anna, and we're the hosts of We Judge a Show by Its Pilot, a podcast hosted by us, a married couple with an endless love for TV.
Whether you're searching for a new favorite series or ready to revisit an old classic, we're here to guide you through an infinite world of TV shows.
Each episode, we watch and discuss the pilot for shows while also sharing personal stories that parallel the storyline.
So if you're tired of endlessly scrolling and not sure what to watch next, tune in and let us do the searching for you.
We Judge a Show by Its Pilot. New episodes every Tuesday and Friday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Your new favorite show is just one click away. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our pod.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. I'm glad it's not thundering anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was sounding like it was going to rain really hard again, but I haven't looked outside to see.
So the power kept going on and off at work today. And it takes forever for the kitchen AC to kick back on. So I basically had no AC today for about the last 2.5 hours. And we're getting into the hot days of Louisiana. So
well, any day is a hot day in Louisiana,
right.
But when you don't have AC in a hot kitchen,
it sucks.
It's bad.
Kind of doesn't matter how hot or cold it is outside.
Yeah.
It's always hot in the kitchen.
Well, I'm sorry, Bill.
That'd be the name of my book. It's always hot in the kitchen.
It's always hot. That's a good name. That's a good...
Don't steal that, people.
Don't steal it. Don't steal it. It's your TV show, podcast, cookbook.
Cookbook, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we are continuing Anna Month.
It's Anna Month still.
We're cutting it, not cutting it. We're being a little bit more serious today.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit more heavy, a little bit more intense. I can't imagine us not having a real conversation when it comes to this show.
Oh, yeah.
So just going to go ahead and let y'all know we're going to be probably talking about our personal opinions, talking about our personal political opinions, something that we don't typically do on this podcast. So this episode might not be for you, but if you're still interested in hearing what we got to say, then just to kind of go ahead and let you know, we're going to be the show, if you have not seen Handmaid's Tale, which is the show that we're doing today. If you have not seen it or don't know anything about it, we will be talking about sexual assault. We'll be talking about the oppression of women. We'll be talking about probably politics in general. So just giving y'all a heads up on that because this, I can't imagine. I mean, we can't sit here and try and have a fun conversation.
It's a hard. Yeah,
I can't really sit there and be
but
like,
I wanted to do it just because it was coming back on.
Yeah.
The last season started this month, but we'll talk a little bit about it some more when we get into it, kind of a little bit of the history of the book and whatnot. So
we are doing The Handmaid's Tale. This doesn't really represent any era of your life. Maybe we watched this during COVID. It was one of our COVID shows. I would kind of say, this is just a show that we watched, started together, and we're currently finishing together. So it kind of just and we were not planning on the show to come out for the final season to start during Anna Month. We were not planning on that.
Yeah, we didn't even know.
We've had the show picked out for this month since December. So there was no intention on that. But it is, very convenient, and they're currently airing their 6th and final season. And so we're going to get into all of that, and Anna's going to do what she always does and give us some episode and series information.
The Handmaid's Tale of Fred. The Handmaid's Tale is a dystopian drama that premiered on Hulu on April 26, 2017, and as we are recording this, the show's 6th and final season is airing and will conclude on May 27, 2025. The show will have a total of 6 seasons and 66 episodes.
How about that?
Oh, yeah. 6. The series was created by Bruce Miller and is based on a novel by Margaret Atwood. This was Miller's first job as a series creator. He had previously worked as a writer for shows such as ER, Eureka, and Higher Ground. The pilot was also written by Miller and was directed by Reed Morano. Morano had worked mostly as a cinematographer for films such as Kill Your Darlings and The Skeleton Twins. Originally released in 1985, the novel received critical acclaim for pushing boundaries and forcing people to look at the idea of men controlling women's rights, which is, now more relevant than ever. And we'll talk about that here in just a second.
Yep.
A film adaptation of the novel was released in 1990, starring Natasha Richardson, Robert Duvall, Faye Dunaway, Elizabeth McGovern, Aidan Quinn, and Victoria Tennant. Atwood published a sequel in 2019 called The Testaments, which centers around the character of Aunt Lydia. The Handmaid's Tale focuses on June Osborne, who lives in Gilead, a totalitarian nation that overthrew the United States. Gilead is also a theocratic government, meaning that the divine law of the Bible governs society. June is classified as a handmaid, an oppressed class of fertile women who were forced to serve as surrogates to commanders, the highest ranking class of men in Gilead, and their wives. The main cast includes Elizabeth Moss as June Osborne. Fred is her name as a handmaid because she is of Fred. Fred is her commander.
Yeah, they no longer have names.
Yeah. Joseph Fiennes as Commander Fred Waterford, Yvonne Stravosky as Serena Joy Waterford, Fred's wife, Alexis Bledel as Emily Malik of Glenn, June's walking partner, Madeline Brewer as Janine Lindo of Warren, a girl June met during her training as a handmaid, Ann Dowd as Lydia Clements, an aunt that works for the Rachel and Leah Center, the training facility for handmaids, O.T. Fagbinlay as Luke Bankole, June's husband, Max Minghella as Nick Blaine, Commander Waterford's driver, Samira Wiley as Moira Strand, June's best friend, Amanda Brugel as Rita Blue, the Waterford's housekeeper, or also known as a Martha, and Ever Carradine as Naomi Putnam, the wife of Janine's commander. The series became an instant hit and has currently received 76 nominations. The series became an instant hit and currently has received 76 nominations, winning 17 of them for Outstanding Lead Actress for Elizabeth Moss, Outstanding Supporting Actress for Ann Dowd, Alexis Bledel, Samira Wiley, and Cherry Jones. You can currently watch the entire series on Hulu.
Yeah, so I think this is just being nitpicky. I put supporting actress, but I think Cherry Jones won for best guest actress.
Oh, okay.
And I think Alexis Bledel did too. I don't remember, but they all won Emmys because there was all different, like their casting status changes throughout the show.
Yeah, like guest means they appeared in like less than half of the episodes,
Yeah.
But even if they qualify for that, they can still put themselves up for supporting.
Oh, okay.
It's just not the other way around. If you're in more than 50%, you can't be a guest.
Gotcha.
It counts as supporting.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah,
Okay.
I looked that up.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I did know that little bit of trivia for you.
All right. So first, what did you think of the pilot? Watching it, rewatching.
Yeah, we rewatched it just like last week.
Have you rewatched the first season since? I know you've rewatched certain episodes, and I know you'll rewatch certain. This isn't one of those shows that you put on in the background, but this is one of those shows that we'll kind of talk about an episode, and maybe you'll start watching it or something like that.
Yeah.
So I haven't rewatched. This is my first time watching the pilot since we first watched it originally when it originally aired. We watched it upstairs. I remember.
Yeah,
before we had that whole setup.
When this came out, I think I even told you this. I didn't read the book, but I remember the movie with Natasha Richardson coming out and watching it. And I don't remember the entire what happened in that specific movie. I did see it, but obviously that was, almost 40 plus years ago.
Yeah.
Or 30 years ago.
35.
Yeah. I'm bad at math. I just remember watching it then as like about a 21-year-old going, what is happening?
Yeah.
Like, what? Like this, it had never really ever crossed my mind that this is what the world could come to in our age. Like, I felt, you know, in, you know, the 70s, 80s, women had, you know, just gained so much about their bodies, about their place in the household, their place in the workplace, their rights. And to see it all go backwards, I just remember thinking this, like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And just it having that much of an impact on me. I mean, I think I've talked a lot about my mom and how my mom was always very much of the mindset, I always want you to be able to take care of yourself. Like, I never want you to have to rely upon a man to sustain yourself. And not that she didn't want me to get married and have children one day or any of those things. She just was always like, I never want you to be subservient to a man.
Yeah.
Like, that just was something I think she just wanted so much for me and my sister. Not that she felt that way, but, you know, my mom didn't go to school beyond high school.
Yeah.
And after my brother was born, she didn't really officially work full time. She had different odd jobs and things that she did, like her tour guiding and food demoing and stuff. But like her own money, her own things, everything was paid for basically from my dad. So that movie had a big impact on me in the sense of like, that's not the direction that we were going in. And I really remember that.
Yeah.
So the pilot, in that sense, it just awakened all of those feelings because I mean, it started out with a bang with the chase. And I mean, obviously, because I knew the movie that I had seen before and, you know, the book itself,
the basic premise.
I knew the premise. So, I mean, it just started out right away, you know, a couple with their child, obviously on the run being chased. And you're just like, oh my gosh,
what is going on?
Yeah. And for me, the thing that was also interesting about it that is really impactful today is that today there has been some announcement that our government is talking about paying women to have children, to be married and to have children. And then I'm thinking, and then what? Like, so, you know, all of a sudden you're going to have like all these women having children thinking they're going to get a $5,000 check. And then what are they going to do with their kids when they can't provide beyond that $5,000?
$5,000 for a child is nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Then the other thing that's really also disturbing about the pilot and what's happening today is they are talking about creating these registries of people and their quote unquote, what the government is calling an illness. I do not call it an illness, like autism, and keeping track of, you know, people who have autism or other ailments or medical conditions, to keep track of them. And my question is, why? Is it so that they don't have more children, so that it prevents them and they might maybe sterilize them in the future? Is it to experiment on them and try to figure out what's happening? Because that's what happened in Handmaid's Tale. They found out who was fertile and they became handmaids. Women who, you know, were of no longer childbearing years or were infertile, became Marthas or were sent to the colonies. So those were our choices: become a slave, become a worker in the fields, or get raped constantly. So it's crazy to think that those are the things that are now coming into fruition. And if you don't see that as a parallel, I don't know how you can't, but you're choosing not to, because I personally do not I don't think we have any of our immediate relatives that are autistic or anything.
No.
But that would disturb me greatly if there was a registry keeping track of one of my relatives for a disease or a condition. You know, what do you need to know that for? They are an active part of the community. They can go to school. They can have jobs, and so those are a couple of just the basics of a couple of things that were happening like just this week. So that was very close to what is happening on this show and what was written about by Margaret Atwood.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. You know, growing up as a straight white boy, straight white man, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know what it's like to be oppressed, because I don't. I'm not ever going to try and, you know, be like, well, I know what it's like, because I don't. I don't. But I do know what it's like to have a daughter, and I do know what it's like to... So my stepbrother and I are the same age. We've talked about this before. And we got... Well, I was married. He wasn't, but that doesn't matter. We had our kids at the same time.
Yeah.
Our his son and my daughter were born like 3 weeks apart.
Yeah.
So we were kind of going through the whole baby thing together. We were living in different states, but we were living in, you know, we were kind of going through it together. And I just remember like being back home when Jamie was pregnant, and I remember the different reactions that Tyler would get and I would get when we told them that one of us was having a boy and one of us was having a girl. It was two completely different reactions.
Wow.
By the same people. And it was very interesting because it was the first time I began to understand and like kind of stepped out of my bubble of privilege and started to understand that, oh, before this girl is even born, she's being treated differently. Because it was like Tyler would be like, oh, I'm having a boy. And people would be like, oh, you know, oh, boys, they're so much fun. And, oh, you're going to have a prince. Oh, you know, the man of the house, blah, blah, blah. And then I would be like, I'm having a girl. I'd be like, uh-oh, look out. Like,
dating.
They're going to be trouble. They're going to be their periods. And, you know, it's just, it was such a, like, negative. It would always be such a negative reaction, even from women. And it was like I found it, I'm not going to lie, I found it very disturbing, and I found it very upsetting. And like I said, it was just, you know, I've always been a Democrat, I've always been a liberal, I've always been very open-minded, I've always tried not to judge people based on anything other than who they are as a person. I believe if I don't like you, it has nothing to do with your religion, it has nothing to do with the color of your skin or where you're from or your gender identity. It's because I think you're an asshole. Like, that's simply it.
Your behavior.
It's your personality. I mean, like, it's just someone that I just don't like you. And it has nothing to do with anything other than your personality. Just letting everybody out there know.
Yeah.
Started to understand. And then once I started kind of looking at things from a different angle, that was when I slowly started to learn that things that I did when I was younger were very toxic, and the things that I did, things that I said weren't okay, and the things that I said in the comfort of other straight white men, even though they weren't offended by it, that doesn't mean that it's not offensive. And it took me a really, really long time, not a really long time, it took me a long time to kind of become the person that I am now. But you know, I remember watching this for the first time, and I mean, you know, this was also, 2017, this was, Maddie, I'm sorry if you ever hear this at any point in time, this is when Maddie, like, started getting her period, and she was becoming a woman, and watching this pilot, I remember originally watching it, was very upsetting, because I just kept thinking about my daughter the whole time. I just kept thinking about Maddie the entire time.
That's all I ever think about.
And later in the series, when McKenna Grace's character gets introduced, then I really started thinking about Maddie, because those actresses are the same age. And so it was just like, the McKenna Grace is the same age as Maddie, not Maddie isn't an actress. But it just very, you know, now watching it, I'm like, was mentally prepared. We have almost 6 seasons worth of episodes going into this pilot that we've already watched. So I'm like, okay, I know what happens. It isn't shocking, but it's not shocking, but it's still upsetting. It's still very upsetting to watch. yeah, like it's rough from I can't imagine how it feels. I cannot imagine how it feels for a woman to watch that.
And I also feel like it's hard to watch in the sense because you can slowly see it starting to happen right now in our country. And again, if you don't see that, that's fine. I don't know
how you
can't or how you justify what is happening. But I do. I everything I think of is about Maddie and the future and when we're not here, and I think about Kennedy as well. So I worry about them and their future, and the thought of them being a handmaid in the future. That just kills me. And I don't know, you just are like, I think along the way as we've been watching, I hate using the word joked. We just keep thinking like, okay, what would we do in this situation? What position would we be? Like, I could be a Martha, you could be a driver, We're like, how could we stay together somehow? Because that's the other thing, is that they're all torn apart. Like, they don't care because they take Hannah from, Luke and June and give her to a family who couldn't have kids. And so again, it's just, they're tearing apart families on the whole thing about having families, so you're like, what? So and again, it's kind of like things that are happening today in the government. And again, just not an exact example, but they're talking about student loans right now, and, that there is no ease of payment, no like job pay scale. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, this is coming from a person who has defaulted on numerous bank loans for his businesses and his corporations and his university, and now he's coming to say like everybody else has to pay but he didn't have to. Like, so those are the things that just sort of kill me inside, and how people justify that. Oh, well, that's okay. Like, that was business, but you took out these loans, so now you need to pay them back. Well, yes, I believe that as well, but also there doesn't need to be predatory lending interest rates, because I don't know if I've ever talked about it, but my loans got wiped away. I had paid on them for 20 plus years. In those 20 years, I had taken out approximately, I'm just going to make up a round number, around $80,000 in student loans. I paid back over $250,000. I paid back 3 times what I had borrowed. I could definitely see maybe if you wanted to say you got to pay back 160, you like pay back what you borrowed and then give us some extra interest for lending you the money. But 3 times as much, it's insane. It's insane. It's crazy. And that's where I just feel like our government fails us in that sense. So, it's just, and so they think $5,000 is going to,
is that even going to pay your hospital bill?
Exactly.
I mean, after the kid's born.
Diapers for a year. I don't know. I've never had my own baby, but I'm going to guess diapers and formula.
I'm just thinking about that. I'm just thinking about that hospital bill. Yeah. That's all I'm thinking about.
Exactly. So, anyway, so those are the things that I think about, or I thought about as we watched the pilot again, but also the series and season 6 as it started. And just today, how, it's a little scary that it's sort of looking a little Handmaid's Tale-ish. Like, we have friends that don't even watch. Like, our friend Alicia, I don't think she's watched an episode.
No,
like,
I think she's just like, I think she's just like, we don't.
I don't need to watch it. It's like on the news.
We're living it.
Yeah, she's like, I don't need to watch the show.
We are watching we are witnessing women slowly getting their rights taken away from them as we're recording this.
Yeah,
if they've already been taken
voting.
away, and with taking away, a woman's right to choose, regardless of if they were raped or if it was incest. If they get an abortion, they'll go to jail,
and
it's
the
like,
doctor,
and I just
child.
It's mind-boggling that it's even happening, and now we're learning that there are certain women out there that if they have a different last name on their birth certificate than what's on their ID, then they can't vote. So women that changed their name when they got married, which is extremely ironic because that's a very traditional conservative thing to do. And I would say majority of the people that voted for our current president, the married ones probably took their husband's name. They're not going to be able to vote. And like,
if that comes to fruition,
if that ends up coming to fruition, and they're doing it under the guise of trying to catch immigrants, but illegal immigrants aren't voting. So it's just like, so that is where I am like, oh no, y'all are trying to do some sneaky shit. Like y'all are trying to get a specific demographic of people in control of the votes so you can make this idea of a country what you think will make it better, but all it's done is make us more divided. All politics have done in the last 20 years have done is just make us more and more divided. People now more than ever define themselves by their political party, by who they vote for. These people who call themselves Christians are worshiping our president like they're a god, like he's a god or something like that. Like he's the greatest thing that's ever happened to our country, but they have no basis on why he's the greatest thing to ever happen to our country. That fucking terrifies me. Like when people have that attitude, when they're just like, he's the greatest president we've ever had. I'm like, what has he done? They're like, I don't know. And I'm just like, that's terrifying that you think that. Like,
well, even more so during political elections, and I'm talking non-presidential. I'm talking like local, like judges, Congress, councilmen, when they are like advertising that they're running and to vote for me, what I've noticed a lot now is that they will say, hi, I'm Joe Schmo, and you should vote for me because I believe in your gun rights. I'm pro-choice, and I also supported Governor so-and-so or President so-and-so in the last election. And you're just like, is that relevant?
Yeah.
Like you're running for, I'll just make up something like juvenile judge.
Yeah, comptroller.
Yeah, comptroller, even better. And I'm like, so what does you liking the Second Amendment have to do with being a comptroller? So that's where I'm just like, why don't you tell me about you, not who you voted for. Tell me what you're going to do. And don't try to sway my vote because you've actually dissuaded my vote.
Right.
And not just because whatever, but I'm like, I want to know what you're going to do, not who you voted for. And that shouldn't have anything to do because I really do try to look at different candidates because a lot of times in the parish that you and I live in, it's very conservative.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we don't have any Democratic options.
Nope.
Like in one of the last elections we voted,
The most recent
every
one.
candidate on the ballot was a Republican. And again, one or the other, there are a couple of other options, but we did go and vote.
Yeah.
So we did look at candidates. We didn't skip voting because there wasn't a Democrat.
Right.
We went and actually voted hoping we got the best of what the options were.
Right.
So, anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to get into the pilot
Do
summary?
it.
All
Let's
right.
do it.
All right. So I feel like for this, we need to paint a picture. And before we start before we start the actual episode, I'm going to give a little bit of backstory on what basically are the events leading up to the beginning of the episode.
Right.
So I'm basically talking about how the U.S. was overthrown and the roles that everyone has, and I'm going to be talking about that. And then I'm going to say, all right, I literally have a start that says, okay, we can start the episode. Okay. So The Handmaid's Tale, Offred, pilot summary. This is the backstory. Fertility rates are lower than ever. Finding a woman who can bear children is extremely rare. The country we know as the United States is suffering the most due to high pollution and an increase in STDs. The country we know as the United States has their government overthrown by a zealous religious group calling themselves the Sons of Jacob, who have renamed the country to the Republic of Gilead. Gilead is a totalitarian, theocratic government, meaning it is an extreme dictatorship that uses the divine laws of the Bible as societal laws, which is terrifying. All women have had their rights removed. They are no longer allowed to learn to read or write. They are not allowed to hold paying jobs. Their entire existence is meant to either get married, be a servant, or procreate, something that you said a little bit earlier. The government is ran by all men. The council are the highest ranking class above everyone else in Gilead because they run the show. The council, I think they're in D.C. I think the actual council are the people that run the country, but they're in D.C.
Gotcha.
Commanders are considered the highest ranking men in any given city because they basically are the leaders of each community. They serve as leaders of their community, and then they have guardians, are like the second class of men. They work under the commanders. They usually work as a driver or a bodyguard. They're essentially commanders in training. And then there are the eyes of God, or the eye. They're the secret police that work undercover to see if there's any corruption going on. Now for the women, wives are the highest ranking class of women. They're married to commanders. Despite their high ranking, they still have no rights outside of their home. They can give commands to aunts, Marthas, and handmaids, but only in relation to their household. They wear blue dresses. Colors are very important on the show.
Oh, yeah.
So the wives wear blue. Marthas are the working class who work as servants or housekeepers for commanders. They were women who were women of faith but were deemed infertile or were unmarried. They wear gray garments and eventually have to start wearing veils in public. Did I say gray? Yeah, they wear gray garments and eventually have to start wearing veils in public. Aunts are generally older women who are no longer fertile but were women of strong faith. Aunts have the most rights out of all the other women in Gilead. They are allowed to read and write. They oversee handmaids and daughters. They can report any unacceptable behavior, even with commanders. They also preside over general punishments, such as executions or sending women to the colonies. They wear brown robes. Handmaids are the most important class of women, but ironically the most oppressed and the lowest ranking class. They are fertile women who are found guilty of sin. Each handmaid is assigned to a commander where they participate in a fertility ritual where the commander has sex with the handmaid while the wife holds the handmaid down. It's literally a ritual of rape. It's a rape.
Yeah.
It's a rape ritual.
Oh yeah.
They throw some bullshit in there, read from the book of Genesis to justify it, and then they rape these girls. The concept is taken from the story in the book of Genesis of the story of Leah and Rachel, where one of them was, I don't remember which one was the wife, but the wife was unable to bear children, so they had a handmaid bear the children for the family. They wear red robes to signify fertility and white bonnets that cover most of their face and are always meant to be looking down, so you're never meant to see their faces. There are also unwomen who are infertile and guilty of sin and were either executed or sent to the colonies. If a handmaid continuously can't conceive, then they are sent to the colonies. If any class of woman is found guilty of sin, they are sent to the colonies. The colonies are areas of the country that have become high in pollution, radioactive waste, and are used as slave labor. Most people die within a year or two of being in the colonies due to the unbearable living conditions. Most women would rather be a handmaid or executed than sent to the colonies, which is saying something. You want a slow death or a quick death? I mean, just hang me on the wall. I'd rather be hung on the wall. All right, we can start the episode now. I feel like that's a good enough explanation.
Yeah.
Okay. Because when I saw when I typed out the plot summary, I was just kind of like, I feel like I have to explain all this.
Oh, right, because it starts with a bang. I mean, it starts in the chase.
Because you kind of slowly learn all of these things, but like I feel like it's important to know that right out of the gate, because then you learn about Jezebels. You don't learn about that until later in season 1.
Yeah.
That's not mentioned in the first episode, so I figure that's not important right now.
Right.
All right, so let's start the episode. A woman flees from a group of men with guns, but she is captured and separated from her young daughter and her husband and is presumably killed. Gunshots are heard from his direction after their separation. So it starts off with this really intense car chase. You have Luke and June, and then their daughter Hannah, who I believe was like 5 or 6 at the time. and they're trying to make it to they're trying to make it to Canada. They're trying to make it to Canada so they can be refugees and claim sanctuary or whatever you do. But they are separated. So June and Hannah separate from Luke, and then June tries to carry Hannah through the woods. Eventually, they have to stop. They hide, but they're eventually caught. The gunshots heard from far away, so you're presumed that Luke is dead. And then Hannah and June are separated, and that was the last time, up until this point, that was the last time June saw Hannah. And we're not entirely sure how much time has passed. That's about the only thing that we haven't been completely, that hasn't been like completely established, was how much time in between that and June ending up at the Waterford. It's like how much time has passed throughout that.
Because she had to go through like training. Yeah. And they're being chased because she's fertile.
Yeah.
And she's committed a sin because she married Luke, who was divorced.
Yes.
So
she was committed. She was found guilty of adultery.
Yes.
Yeah, I read that and I couldn't remember why.
Yeah.
So Luke got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I had forgotten the backstory.
That's why she is wanted.
All right. The woman is known as Offred, a handmaid to Commander Fred Waterford. Offred goes out grocery shopping with her companion walking partner of Glenn. On the way home, they pass by a wall of men who have been hanged due to committing Gilead crimes such as being gay, working in an abortion clinic, and being Catholic. In a flashback to the Red Center, that's also called the Lee and Rachel Center. That's the training facility for the handmaids. Various women are indoctrinated into their handmaid roles by Aunt Lydia, who becomes Dowd. This was the role of her lifetime.
Oh my God,
she's been in so many great things, but like she deserves every award she's ever gotten for this show. She's an amazing actress. In a flashback to the Red Center, various women are indoctrinated into their handmaid roles by Aunt Lydia, who tells them about declining birth rates and that they are special, serving a biblical purpose. Offred enters the room and notices Moira, a friend while she met in college and someone that has like kind of remained her best friend. One of the women in the class, Janine, talks back to Lydia, and is shocked with a cattle prod. Later, Janine is revealed to have been punished by having one of her eyes removed. Janine is later forced to confess her sins and tells the story of her being basically gang raped. Aunt Lydia explains that Janine brought the rape upon herself, and the other handmaids are made to shame Janine. As Offred hesitates, she is slapped by Aunt Margaret.
Aunt Margaret.
I always say aunt. I'm sorry.
Oh, no,
Aunt. No. In the present, the first ceremony begins. All members of the household, we got Offred, Rita, the driver Nick, Commander Waterford, and his wife Serena, gather in the sitting room while the commander reads a piece from Genesis about Jacob and his wife Rachel. That's who it was. And his wife Rachel, who could not conceive, using the wife's handmaid to bear their child. The commander, his wife, and Offred then move to the bedroom where Commander Waterford tries to impregnate Offred as she lies in the lap of his wife, who holds down the handmaid's arms. After the commander finishes, he then leaves the room. Offred continues to lie on her back to increase the chances of insemination, but Serena instructs her to get out. The next day, all the handmaids gather in an open field where Aunt Lydia announces a man has raped a pregnant handmaid. Offred runs into Alma, a girl she became friendly with while at the Red Center, and then sees a very pregnant Janine. Janine seems to have been kind of brainwashed by Gilead, and is proud to be pregnant. She also informs Offred that Moira is dead. For the man's punishment, the handmaids are allowed to brutally beat the man until Aunt Lydia blows her whistle to stop, which ultimately leads to the man being beaten to death, with Offred leading the pack, seemingly taking her anger and aggression out on the man. During the beating, Janine is on the outskirts of the circle, smiling towards the sky, and many of the handmaids are splattered with blood, and a white sheet is placed over the man's body. Yeah, they killed the shit out of that guy.
Oh my God.
That was probably, I mean, other than the ritual scene, that was another scene where I was just like, Jesus Christ, I was just like, this episode just never lets up, and I think that's another reason why this show, I'm on the last paragraph, but like, the reason why I think I have become so hooked on this show is because the episodes are so intense, and they like, you have just this nervous feeling in the pit of your stomach the entire time, and for some reason, I just keep wanting to know, and I keep wanting to keep watching. So on the way home, Offred tells Glenn about her family and failed escape attempt, whilst Glenn in turn reveals she had a wife and a 5-year-old son, Oliver, who fled to Canada. At the gate of Offred's house, Glenn warns Offred that an eye is a member of the household. Offred is left wondering which member of the house could possibly be the eye. She witnesses the Waterfords heading into a meeting. She witnesses Fred heading into a meeting with other commanders before being sent to her room by Serena. Sitting alone in her room, Offred vows to find a way to survive for her daughter's sake and reveals her true name is June. End of episode. Yeah, so this is really intense. It's so good. I mean, it's weird. I always feel weird kind of saying, oh my God, a show like this, oh my God, it's so good. I feel like weird saying it,
that's
but
what I'm saying.
but it's just, it's the acting. And I think because we watch like the inside the episodes, we watch all the behind the scenes stuff, and you know, we have to remind ourselves these are actors. They're not necessarily people that believe these things, or, you know, but you get so like invested that you forget. You're like, oh yeah, like Joseph Fiennes is probably like a fine person in real life.
Right,
like he's probably an okay person in real life. But if I ever saw him in public, I'd just be like, you know.
Like Yvonne, you know, I mean, you just are like, bitch, you wrote this book. You started this, you know. So yeah, you just want to like strangle her.
Yeah. So this is a show that, I mean, it's very intense, but I recommend watching it just because it's a good show, regardless of your politics. It's just a really good show, and it's a very, I feel like, and I'm sure Anna feels the same way, that it's a very important show, and it's something that, yes, it is technically fiction, but it's starting to become harder to justify it being fiction at this point. It becomes harder and harder as each year passes. And, you know, with the pandemic I feel like the pandemic really set us back, and I think that caused a lot of tension in our country. We became a lot more untrusting again. And, you know, I just feel like we're just so divided right now. And I just wish that people would just stop listening to what they're being told on the news and just like have their own thought and have their own opinion and really look at things for what they are rather than what they're being told is the right thing. And I think that's what, many things upset me the most. So there are going to be several things that upset me, but like, it's just very frustrating that people are just following on what they're being told and they're just like not questioning any of it. It blows my mind. It honestly kind of blows my mind sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. It's crazy. And I think what sort of also makes me sad about the show, especially, is people being split up, like from your friends, from your family, your kids, your mom. I mean, just everything. And that's why, like I said loosely, like I joked, like I could be a Martha and you could be the driver, so we could at least be somewhat together, you know. Like I would hate to be sent to the colonies and not know where you were or what had happened to you back wherever you were. So I think that would be the hardest part. So yeah.
All right. Well, this was a serious one, and I'm really glad. We originally were going to end our month with this show. I'm glad we didn't. We have a much more fun show for our last episode of the month.
One of our favorites,
one of our favorites, and actually one of our COVID shows. So really excited about that. But for now, I think we're going to conclude this episode. It was short, just like I thought it was going to be. I didn't say it, but I was like, this isn't going to be a long episode. All right, that wraps up this episode. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on whichever platform you're listening to this podcast on. That way you'll be notified every time we publish a new episode. You can also follow us on Instagram at WeJudgePilotPod. We're also on Facebook. You can leave us a comment, suggest a show for us to watch, or leave some emojis in the comments. I mean, emojis are fun. The show isn't fun, but, you know, we can go ahead and make some fun out of it.
I have just a few. So I have the book, the movie, and the TV, because they've been all three this show. The Eye, for Janine, but also Under His Eye. The Home, the Gun, the Lightning for the Cattle Prod, the Bed, Blood, and a pregnant lady for Janine and for the handmaids. The Canadian flag, because that is where they all try to get to, but also most importantly, the U.S. flag, because we do love our country.
We do.
And we just want there to be love and to be happiness and not such division. So anyway, so that's it. All right. Well, we are going to head out, but we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening.
Under his eye.